be committed to nonviolence in the middle of the most violent society that history's ever created. I'm not committed to nonviolence in any way.
Man or woman who hates communism the most, that is to say, the man or woman who knows the least about communism, is the man or woman who wants to know the least about communism. That is to say, snakes are my enemies. They come to bite me, and I don't even want to know what they look like.
We're going to see about stopping, regardless of what these people think we should do. Because school is not important, and work is not important. Nothing's more important than stopping fascism, because fascism will stop us all.
Yo, welcome on to the Forest Pod. Once again, it's Comrade Villain here with
your boy, Comrade Lab.
Comrade LAB. And today is May 28th, 2025. And it looks like Ant's about to get eliminated from the playoffs. So it's probably the worst news I've heard all week. What about you, man?
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Worst news you heard all week, though.
Oh, no, there's worse news than
worse than that.
Okay, and getting eliminated. But you know, I was rooting for them. Didn't think they was gonna go down.
Yeah,
4-1.
We're gonna have a small market finals: Indiana versus Oklahoma City. Neither one has won. Wait, Oklahoma City's won a title, right? Did they win with Durant or no?
No, they definitely didn't win one with Durant. They may have won one before that. I'm not sure though.
If they went with Durant, I don't think they have. So in Indiana, I was thinking earlier today, I know Reggie Miller didn't win. So
nope.
I don't think they've won. So, and both of the teams are fast as fuck, run up and down the court a lot. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a fun watch, I think, regardless. But I did you see this tweet? Somebody tweeted, the Taliban just bombed New York.
Yeah, I've been seeing that. the Taliban tweets. Those are funny.
That's a great tweet. Even though, I mean, it kind of encapsulates a lot because it's very funny. But like, the Taliban didn't bomb New York, did they? That was Al Qaeda, right?
Yeah.
Like, they're the ones that, I'm talking about the first one, the bombing in the basement.
Oh.
Because I know the Taliban wasn't part of 9/11.
Right. And I don't think that was the Taliban either.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah.
But it's just funny how in popular culture they get lumped in.
Yeah.
All they did was let Osama and his homies practice, do some drills. It's not their business. I'm trying to look real quick to see if there's any other news. I haven't really checked the news this week. The big beautiful bill, that's important. I should have did my segment on that.
Yeah, that would have been a good topic to cover.
Probably we'll do it next week because it's going to be an in-depth topic.
Yeah.
What do you know about it?
It's big. It's beautiful. It's big and beautiful.
I hate that we're here, but I mean, is it just tax cuts?
Yeah. I mean, I've heard some of the Dems, crying about. I shouldn't say crying because it's serious, but
legit complaint.
Cuts in like Medicaid and some of the other social programs.
Okay. So that's what I would expect.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure it's to extend Trump's tax cuts.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, he's trying to make those permanent.
I'm going to have to definitely look into that. Because were they sunsetting this year, do you know?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they were due to sunset.
I think whenever they do that, it's like 6 years. I don't know. It was very clever to do it just, so it didn't sunset during Biden's term. And it wasn't on his, like he couldn't do anything about it. Even though he probably wouldn't do anything about it. One thing I do know about it is that it's H.R. 1, the first House resolution of the year. It's the first bill introduced in the House since January.
Interesting.
So there's that. Everything that has been going on, all the legislation. Well, I guess there hasn't been any legislating. All of Trump. I don't know, his reign. and the GOP's reign in Congress. Congress isn't doing anything. It's all by executive order. This is the first bill. It's fucking, I don't know, that's crazy. We're 5 months in. They could have introduced bills in January.
All right.
All right. Moving on. Definitely going to do a deep dive into that. Quick updates and corrections. I didn't listen to the last episode again like I wanted to, but I do know some things I wanted to update. Tariffs, of course. Empty shelf watch 2025. Do you think there have been any reports within the last 7 days about empty shelves for the tariffs?
Not to my knowledge.
You're going to go no?
Sure.
Yeah, you're right. I haven't seen anything. Can't find anything yet. There have been, people saying that there are companies saying they're going to raise their prices, like Walmart and Macy's.
Mm-hmm.
And they've also, said that, we're probably going to have empty shelves pretty soon, but still not yet. I did look and see some of the other companies that are raising their prices. Actually, from the CEO of Walmart, Doug McMillon, there's a quote from him: "We'll do our best to keep our prices as low as possible, but given the magnitude of the tariffs, we aren't able to absorb all the pressure given the reality of narrow retail margins." Translate that to English, Brent.
Prices going up. Yesterday's price.
The tax is getting passed on to you. Yesterday's price is not today's price. What is that from?
That's Fat Joe.
Is it Fat Joe?
Had said that. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know what the context was.
Do you know this one? Any contract can be recontracted.
No.
That was Birdman.
Oh, is it? There you go.
To a fucking a class of like business students.
There you go.
Fucking savage. Regardless, yeah, I mean, it's what Trump said was not going to happen. What all economists and even like people who aren't economists said would happen with tariffs. The price gets passed on to the consumer. These companies aren't going to eat the price, even though Trump has been telling them to eat the price.
Right.
Have you heard about him and Mattel beefing?
No.
The toy company?
Not.
Their CEO said, quote, "Under the current scenarios, we're considering ... So that's cutting some shit out. We expect 40% to 50% of products to remain priced at $20 or less." So that's a fun way of saying like the other 50% probably going to raise the prices on that. And Donald Trump, in response, he said, quote, "That's okay." Oh, no, hold on. The president of Mattel, CEO of Mattel, said he will diversify manufacturing to countries other than the United States. This is what really pissed Trump off. And then Trump said, quote, "That's okay. Let him go. We'll put 100% tariff on his toy, and he won't sell one toy in the United States. And that's their biggest market." So,
Wow.
Can you do that? Can you put a tariff on a toy, like one specific toy from one company?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't think he knows. This is a company statement from Best Buy, their recent earnings call, which is, what they have to report to the investors. Quote, "Vendors across our entire assortment will pass along some level of tariff costs to retailers, making price increases for American consumers highly likely." They're all just trying to like sugarcoat that, hey, we're raising the prices.
Right.
But like, it's obvious. And they're, the reason is the tariffs. Shein and Temu, those are American companies? I didn't know those are American companies.
No, they're not American, are they?
I don't know. Maybe this is not just American. Hold on.
I don't think they're American.
I'm gonna have to look that up. But they said to keep offering the products you love without compromising on quality, we'll be making price adjustments starting April 25th. So about a month ago. Here's an example. Temu's patio chairs 1 month ago were $61.72. Now they're $70.17. So $9
Dang.
increase. Their swimsuit set has gone from $439 to $839. It's a 91% increase. So, yep. get used to this. Ford expects price increases of up to 1.5%, which for automobiles is going to be a lot. Subaru also doing price hikes. Procter & Gamble, Stanley Black & Decker, Adidas. So, yeah, all right, that's the tariff update. Pakistan, India update. You heard anything about that?
Nah, I haven't seen breaking news or anything like that.
Yeah, and I haven't seen too much. Modi did say something. I have that quote here, but before I say that, I did want to take the pin out of what we pinned last time. I said some shit about the J-10C fighter being debuted. You said we had already talked about that happening. It did already happen. That happened on May 7th, not the week of May 13th through the 20th, which is what ChatGPT told me. It's a fucking liar, guys. You got to fact check this shit. People, I mean, at my job, our front desk person is using ChatGPT to send out emails to the whole office, and like I could tell because she just copies it and it keeps the little emojis or whatever emoticons that ChatGPT puts as bullet points.
Mm-hmm.
Dead giveaway. Guys, take that out if you're gonna copy this shit from ChatGPT. But everybody's using this shit, and you guys need to not trust it as much.
Yeah, I've been using it a ton.
I've been using it a lot too, but it just keeps fucking lying to me. So it's just making me more diligent. It's still better than Google.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Modi. Prime Minister Modi. This is his stance on Pakistan. This is India's prime minister. He asserted that Pakistan's actions against India are no longer a proxy war, but a deliberate strategy to target the nation. So, that's what Modi said. It's a bit of escalation, at least in rhetoric. And there's also been some kind of social media misinformation warfare campaign. Both India and Pakistan have a parallel information war going on where they're both disseminating false reports and AI-generated content to portray fictitious military victories. That's pretty wild. That's according to The Guardian. I know what we need to do is start putting our notes, maybe if not all the notes, just our sources, the links into the comments or the description.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I keep forgetting to do that, but I have sources for this shit. And I'm not going to remember to do it all the time. But yeah, so that's all the updates. I don't have any corrections because I listened to the last episode. Do you have any updates or corrections?
Nope, I didn't really listen to it either. I skimmed through it, but
sorry, man. We're gonna get better at this.
Practice makes perfect.
Well, before we move on into my first segment, which is related to tariffs, actually. Well, at least the first item is. Actually, you know what? I don't know what I'm saying before I move on. Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back. And we're back. Back at it. After Mathematic. What song is that from?
That's familiar.
It's got to be Eminem or...
So yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Dr. Dre, written by Eminem.
Yeah.
It's funny how, if you listen... So Diddy and Dr. Dre specifically, depending on who else is on their song, they sound like that person, like Eminem or Jay-Z. It's because that person wrote the shit for them. That's just funny. All right, my segment today. We're gonna keep this hour or this show under an hour for real, for this episode. My segment is a game. Do you want to play a little game? I should put the jigsaw effect on that. You haven't seen Saw, have you? You don't watch scary movies.
Nah, I can't do it.
All right, well, we're going to play a quick little game. It's the headlines game. I'm going to give you two options, two headlines, and you tell me which one is fake, and then I'm going to tell you a little bit about them. So, first option, or first round. Number one, Trump delays 50% tariffs on EU to July 9. Number two, Trump warns Nike, make Jordans in the U.S. or face a 25% tariff. Which one of those is fake?
I have no idea.
I tried to make it funny, but it was way too obvious. Now it kind of seems like this is pretty difficult.
Yeah.
Both of them could be real, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna say the Jordan one.
All right, you're right. The second one is fake. The actual headlines, even the fake ones, I based off real ones. The real one is Trump warns Apple make iPhones in the U.S. or face a 25% tariff.
Oh, there you go.
But before, see, that seems cheap. But before I talk about that one, let's go back. The Trump delays 50% tariffs on. Actually, you know what? It makes more sense to do it the other way. All right. Trump warns Apple make iPhones in the U.S. or face a 25% tariff. I thought about it like what we were just talking about. Can he put a tariff on a specific company or product like that, like the way he's threatening to?
Right.
And no, you can't. So tariffs are only applied by either, or I guess both, product category and country of origin. So because Apple makes a lot of their iPhones in India, he could put a tariff on smartphones, I guess, coming from India. So if any other companies, have the same deal with India, then they'll be also included in that. It won't be specifically targeted to Apple, but he could just keep moving the tariffs around if Apple tries to move. So he's threatening them with that, which is pretty wild. Because again, that's not what tariffs are supposed to be used for. That's why he can't target a specific company. It's not supposed to be for that shit. But hold on one second. Where is the quote here? This headline, oh yeah, I meant to mention this. The headline comes from AOL.com. Great source. They don't just send you CDs in the mail anymore. All right. This is the quote from Trump. I have long ago informed Tim Cook of Apple
Tim Apple?
Tim Apple is exactly what I thought. I have long ago informed Tim Cook of Apple that I expect their iPhones that will be sold in the United States of America will be manufactured and built in the United States, not India or any place else. He posts that on True Social. Continuing, if that is not the case, a tariff of at least 25% must be paid by Apple to the U.S. Again, that's not how tariffs work. It's not like the money goes straight to the treasury. Anyways, minutes later, he took True Social again. This was also, by the way, this article was posted on May 23rd. That's important.
Okay.
Because then he posted minutes later, threatening a 50% tax on all imports from the European Union beginning on June 1st because trade negotiations with the EU were going nowhere. Quote. So that's funny because the other headline was Trump delays 50% tariffs on the EU to July 9th. That is from CNBC, and that is from May 25th. So like 2 days later, I guess he reached some kind of deal. Ursula von der Leyen, she's the president of the EU.
Yep.
She said that she needed until July 9th to, quote, reach a good deal.
Right.
And then Trump said, I agree to the extension. July 9th, it was my privilege to do so. So a couple days after writing on Truth Social that is going nowhere, he's going to put a 50% tax on him. He's like, I'm going to extend my delay of that 50% tax, and it's my privilege to do so. He's not a good negotiator, or is it just market manipulation? What do you think?
He's certainly not as good as a negotiator as he thinks he is.
He wrote a whole book, though.
Art of the Deal.
Which is what? Do you know what the art of the deal is? It is summed up in like one sentence.
Scamming people? What?
I'm trying to think off the top of my head. It's something about having some kind of leverage and using that.
Mm-hmm.
But like the way it is like a scam. I'm gonna have to look that up, put a pin in it. So that's happening. He delayed those tariffs after threatening Tim Apple, put specific tariffs on him. This guy's all over the fucking place. All right, Round 2. Cory Booker introduces the Arrest Act to shift U.S. Marshal Service to the judicial branch. Or the Army says it will pay for any road damage from D.C.'s military parade. Which one of those is fake or false?
I'm gonna say the Army saying it's gonna pay for road damage.
Oof. Swing and a miss.
Dang.
So I'm going to talk about that first, though. So that one is real. That is from the Washingtonian. The Washingtonian? Huh. It's like a DC newspaper. Anyways. Yeah. By the way, wouldn't that be taxpayer money? What do you mean the Army said they're going to pay for it?
Yeah, that's what I thought. Hey, that doesn't sound right.
Couldn't Doge could have saved some of that money? Cancel his parade? Elon just fucking made a tweet about Doge because he left the White House talking about, oh, it's going to be a new, attitude. We're cutting. And this fucking, we're about to spend all this money on this parade and also to fix the streets. Apparently, Colonel Chris Vitale is quoted saying, if there's any damage, the Army will be responsible. And yeah, they're worried about concrete breaking on the streets.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be
tanks,
28 M1A1 tanks, 28 Bradley fighting vehicles. I think those are the big ass like flatbed type deals. 28 Strikers, I don't know what that is, and 4 Paladins. That's like a Dungeons and Dragons character, a Paladin. That's what I chose whenever I played that game. Damn, what was that game?
WoW?
No. The other one that I was playing online. Fuck.
Baldur's Gate?
Baldur's Gate.
Baldur's Gate.
Yeah, I was a paladin. So I don't know what that is in real life, but they're gonna be breaking. It's just fun. They're gonna be breaking the streets. And we're gonna pay for it. So the real headline, is Cory Booker introduces the Marshals Act. That's really the only thing I changed. Instead of the Arrest Act, to shift U.S. Marshal Service to the judicial branch. What do you know about this? Have you heard about the Marshals? Do you know about the Marshals?
No, I don't.
So, those are like the fucking fugitive guys. They chase fugitives down. And by the way, that actual headline was not from a real article. That was just from a Reddit post on r/slaw. But yeah, the Marshals right now, as I understand, they would be the ones that would serve the warrant to arrest the president if it ever got to that. That's the only thing, or the only reason I know that it's like in the zeitgeist about politics. So, I don't know, I guess because of the judicial branch attacks and Trump pretty much saying fuck you to the judicial branch, Cory Booker and Chuck Schumer and Adam Schiff and his other little buddies are introducing this act to move the Marshals from the executive branch to the judicial branch. I guess in case it ever came to that, even though, he has immunity while he's in office, right? Wasn't that like a whole thing?
I believe so.
So this would...
Isn't that what that recent Supreme Court ruling? Basically,
yes.
I can't remember.
Yeah, it was that. Before that, there was a Department of Justice interpretation. I remember that.
Right.
But there was definitely a Supreme Court ruling recently, and that was part of them giving up power. It's part of the reason why they're having this fight about getting that guy back from El Salvador, from the El Salvadorian prison, is because they had already made a ruling, I want to say very recently, like this year, about executive immunity and doing things in the, an official act, I think is what it's called.
Mm-hmm.
There's another politician, I have to look this up. I'm pretty sure it was a female. She is trying to use that as her defense in her, I think it's a fraud case or whatever, misusing funds. She was like, it was an official act. If the president gets to use that, then that's available for everybody now. I don't know how that's going to turn out, but that's interesting. But yeah, so Cory Booker wants to move the marshals over. So that's great. He did. Hold on, I do have a quote from him saying why. I thought I did. No, this is just the actual bill. Oh, here we go. Since 1789, the U.S. Marshals have valiantly. The U.S. Marshals have valiantly protected our nation's judges and enforced court orders, but their dual accountability to the executive branch and the judicial branch paves the way toward a constitutional crisis. Bro, where you been? To ensure these necessary functions are carried out, Congress must act to move the Bureau into the judicial branch. Why don't you fucking move it to the congressional branch? Why would you move it to the judicial branch? They're compromised. What are you talking about, dude? What do you think? Thoughts?
So I got distracted. There was I saw there's 3 houses caught on fire from lightning strikes on the beach. So that's pretty
Bleep
crazy.
that out. Don't dox me.
Oh yeah.
It's all good.
I don't know.
But yeah, man. So this is like, again, it's a bill that's never going to go anywhere. It's not going to get passed. Even if it did, Trump would veto it. It's more symbolic bullshit, but like, this is what they choose? There's symbolic shit to do? Or is it like them trying to get the judicial branch on their side? I don't, is that the play here? What's going on? What do you think?
I really don't know. I mean,
What's the point of this?
some of the things that they do, it's hard to figure out what the rationale is other than
performative theater?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's just symbolic. I feel like.
Well, this is definitely symbolic, but it's just like the things that they choose to be symbolic about. I don't know. Should show you something that they actually agree with a lot of the other shit. All right, let's move on. Round 3. This is the last round. Here's number 1. Trump officials say yearly COVID shots will no longer be approved for healthy adults and children. Or number 2. Department of Education orders teachers to police negative history under Trump directive. Both of those are terrible.
I don't know.
You got to pick, man. You're 1 for 1. This is a tiebreaker. Are you a winner or a loser? Are you Ant-Man or SGA?
I think I'm gonna be Ant-Man.
Don't fucking think like that. You ain't got that dog in you either. All right, come on. You got to choose one.
Wait, read them back to me.
Trump officials say yearly COVID shots will no longer be approved for healthy adults and children. That's number 1. Or number 2, Department of Education orders teachers to police negative history under, in quotes, negative history under Trump directive.
I know I saw something about the vaccinations. That was RFK. But I think
there you go. Target out.
He was talking about, I think they removed it from kids aren't required to get it. I'm going to say the first one.
It's kind of similar. You saying that one's fake?
I'm saying the first one's fake.
Nah, that one's real.
Damn.
Trump officials say yearly COVID shots will no longer be approved for healthy adults and children.
For healthy adults and children?
That's from PBS. I
thought it was just children.
I'll get into that in a second. The actual headline for the second one, that was false. I said Department of Education orders teachers. It's actually, the hell? National parks ordered to police negative history under Trump directive. So, all right. The COVID shit. This is a policy change. The Trump administration announced it will no longer routinely approve annual COVID-19 shots for healthy adults and children. By the way, so COVID-19 is still a thing. Hasn't gone away. But we all just like
so it's
have
no
moved
longer
on.
approving the Any vaccinations? What does that mean?
So you can get them for free, paid for by the government. That's what the approval is, essentially. It's not saying you can't get them if you want to go, like, get them and, like, pay for them, I guess. I mean,
Okay.
and it's also like the CDC, I know they told them to try to um, just put out shit that's negative about the vaccine or how it's ineffective or yada, yada, yada. This is coming from the FDA, though. The FDA the FDA commissioner and the FDA vaccine chief. The commissioner is Dr. Marty Makari, and the vaccine chief is Dr. Vinay Prasad. Actually, they're not the current commissioner and vaccine chief. They're actually already been replaced. But these two guys are anti-vax and were part of the previous Trump administration, I think. They're the ones that wrote this policy. Yeah. All right. Essentially, it says annual boosters will still be available for adults 65 plus and those of any age with health conditions increasing COVID risk. So, you got a weakened immune system, you still go get it. That's good. That's good. But there's a new requirement. Vaccine manufacturers must conduct large, lengthy studies to get approval for healthy individuals. Who defines what large and lengthy is? Who knows? But, I mean, that sounds like a good thing. But obviously, it's there to just try to stop these vaccines from being approved for use because they're anti-vax in general.
Right.
So that's a thing. Critics of this, including expert Dr. Paul Offit, who is she's the director of the Vaccine Education Center at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, and a professor of vaccinology. That's a thing. At the Perelman School of Medicine, University of Pennsylvania. So this dude knows vaccines. He's all about vaccines. And he says there's going to be a problem. He warns it could make vaccines less available and harder to ensure. That's interesting. But yeah, that's the point. Which is, it's just part of the weird culture war shit on the right now. They're anti-vax. They're taking the fluoride out of the water. Our county the county next to ours, Pensacola, or Escambia County, which includes Pensacola, they just announced that it's out like starting the May 20 something. So there's no fluoride in the drinking water. Thanks, RFK. We're gonna have even more fucked up teeth. Whatever. So these things are happening. And then the national park thing. This is more interesting to me. All U.S. national parks must post signs encouraging visitors to report content that presents American history negatively. This is an executive order based on Trump's directive to counter, quote, revisionist narratives and promote a more patriotic version of history. It's being enforced by the Interior Secretary, Doug Burgum. It's a douchebag name. And it applies to all 400 plus federally managed sites, including the Bureau of Land Management, Forest Service. Agencies must remove material that, quote, disparages Americans or, quote, or promotes, quote, improper ideology. What the fuck do you think that means?
Yeah, I mean, no woke stuff, and
woke is definitely the word for sure.
Yeah, man, we gotta get the woke stuff out of here.
There's no definition of what that means in the executive order, because of course not. But these are some quotes from Trump about this type of thing. Quote, inappropriately. Wait, hold on. Never mind, that's not a quote. That's just the same thing about the bill again. My bad. But the types of targeted content, because this applies to the Smithsonian too, and this has already happened at the Smithsonian apparently, is something called The Shape of Power, Stories of Race and American Sculpture. So that was canceled or what? It's cited as an example of what not to have. Okay, cool. And it was just gonna tell about race through sculpture, whatever. But other sites that are definitely going to be impacted by this, as far as national parks, Manzanar National Historic Site. That's the Japanese American internment campsite. They're not going to want to be able or want them to tell about that. That makes us look bad. That's not very patriotic of us. Unless they're going to go full the other way and it's like, fuck those, which that's fucked. I shouldn't say. Sand Creek Massacre National Historic Site. That was a Cheyenne and Arapaho people massacre. They're not gonna be able to tell about this shit.
Yeah, that's what I kind of assumed. It was like, oh, we can't talk about
Selma to Montgomery
genocide
National
anymore.
Historic Trail.
Genocide is revisionist. Is that basically?
It's revisionist history, essentially, is what this says.
That's what.
Like civil rights march from Selma to Montgomery, like that whole shit. You know, it makes us look like a bunch of slave-owning assholes. That's not great. They're not going to be able to talk about this shit. This is crazy. This is like real 1984 shit, which people don't understand that book. But yeah, there's a New York Post opinion piece, a quote from that, or it praised it, and a quote from that article is, "It's combating woke insanity." So yeah, they use the word woke.
There you go.
This is just
Take a shot. Take a shot.
Symbolic shit on their side that's actually like action. Like their symbolic shit actually is like action that fucks shit up. The Democrats' symbolic shit are bills that go nowhere, or fucking fundraisers and rallies and shit that do nothing. Oh yeah. These perspectives, this is from the New York Post opinion piece. They criticize initiatives like the 1619 Project. Do you know what that is?
Yeah.
Ever heard of that?
Of course.
What do you know about that? I've never heard of that before until today.
Really?
Yeah. Explain or tell
You're
people
not
what
just saying
that
that for
is.
the podcast, are you?
Huh?
You're not just saying that
No,
for the
for real.
podcast.
I have it right here on my chat GPT. What is the fucking 16? I was like, what is that? It's like when I was watching or reading the Diddy trial news today. Yeah. And then so whatever her name was testifying, she said she called 1440. I was like, what the fuck is that? I went on a deep dive. It turns out it's Puffy's security company. But anyways.
Didn't know that.
Yeah. So I was like, what the fuck is this 1619? What is that? 1619 Project.
Yeah.
Now, what is it?
Oh, you want me to
You
tell
say,
you?
tell me what you know what it is.
Oh, man, you put me on the spot. I'm not.
This is on the top of your head, man.
Questions
This ain't a
about
quiz.
If that's what
This
it
what you
feels
know.
like, you've been quizzing me.
I mean, that was a game, though. Yeah, don't take shit too serious.
I mean, like I don't know all the details of it, but I know the author of it was Hannah Nicole Jones. I think her name is. But
I don't even have that.
I'm pretty sure that's what it is. You might have to check that.
Oh, yeah, Nicole Hannah Jones.
Okay, I said it wrong.
Yeah.
Nicole Hannah Jones. And I think she writes for the New York Times.
New York Times Magazine. They're the ones that launched it, yeah.
Yeah. But basically it was just a history of, slavery. Obviously 1619 is the date where the first enslaved people were brought to America.
I didn't know that, see?
Oh.
That's why that number didn't stand out to me. I was like, what happened in 1619?
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's what it
Yeah.
is. So yeah, it covers that history and, how much of the wealth of the country was built on the foundation of slavery, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, the way ChatGPT put it is the goal is to reframe U.S. history by placing slavery and the contributions of Black Americans at the center of the national narrative. Key claim the year 1619, when the first enslaved Africans were brought to Virginia, marks the true founding of the United States. And it talks about how slavery shaped the U.S. economy, politics, culture, institutions, ongoing impact of systemic racism. Like, it's, as a project, it's kind of just like an awareness thing.
Yeah, essentially.
Essays, poems,
like-
podcasts, whatever.
Yeah, there was a podcast I think for it as well. But there has been some criticism of it on the left, that is sort of a liberal account of the history, that it doesn't.
That's interesting. So the only criticism I have is from some historians and conservatives argue it contains factual inaccuracies and overstates slavery's centrality to all aspects of U.S. development. That seems like some right-wing people are trying to do revisionist history. So what was the left-wing? Is left-wing critique is that the Democrats are just using this?
No,
What was it?
I didn't finish.
Well, you said liberals, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, liberals basically have said, or the left, some leftists think that it doesn't give an accurate account of sort of the anti-American sentiment that existed in a lot of the slave rebellions. That it does too much of this, like the narrative is too like built on like showing that Black people have always been like part of this American project, and that we were always wanted to be assimilated into this American
instead of
project.
rejecting it.
Right, exactly. So that's sort of been the
Gotcha. So, that's a fair critique.
right. It doesn't tell much of that story.
Right.
Is
Yeah, because again, that's just assuming that like they wanted to do or be on board with all the other things that come with colonizations and fucking empire. But
right.
yeah,
That we just wanted to be part of the American dream, and like
yeah.
So it kind of
Gotcha.
whitewashes a little bit of that, but but like you said, it's mainly just like an awareness thing. Like it's just retelling the history that everybody should know, but isn't really taught like it should be in our education.
Yeah, look, I mean, like I know I'm white, but like I should know the 1619 thing. I feel like I should have heard that or something
somewhere. Heard about that. That was like, I mean, it was really everywhere like a couple years ago.
Oh, okay. Wait, when was this? 2019. That's whenever it was launched. Okay.
Yeah,
Or the 1619 project, I mean.
Yeah, it was a really big thing, like leading up to like the 2020 election stuff. It was getting a lot of coverage and stuff. So
okay. But yeah, that's it. That's my game. It's my fun little game. Let's take a quick break and then we'll see what you guys talk about because I don't even know. I want to be surprised. And we're back. And Comrade Labs got 15 minutes. All right, go.
all right, we're gonna talk about Sudan today and what's been going on there. But as always, I like to give some of the historical account, and so we know how we got to the current crisis in Sudan.
Sedan, like the car?
No, or comrade.
You're saying it's Sudan. I know you fucked that up. You're saying it's, isn't it Sudan? Or is it Sudan?
Sudan, tomato.
All right. I don't know. I thought maybe there's a proper way to say
Maybe it
Sudan,
is.
and I'm saying this shit wrong.
Sudan, I'm sure it's probably the right way. Sudan.
All right, go ahead, my bad. 15 minutes, go.
All right, so Sudan. We're going to talk about Sudan. So, what do I want to cover? So, we're going to start with the history. Let's see. Sudan was colonized jointly by the British and Egyptians under what was known as the Anglo-Egyptian Condominium from 1899 to 1956. Though nominally a dual administration, Britain dominated. No surprise there. The colonial administration used a divide and rule policy, very popular, very common under colonial rule by Britain. And we
saw
talked
that in
about
India.
that. Yeah, we talked about that in India. They had a divide and rule policy, deepening divisions between the Arabized North and the largely black non-Muslim South. This laid the foundation for decades of ethnic and religious political tension. Sudan gained independence in 1956. After independence, Sudan emerged as a politically vibrant but unstable country. One of the most influential political forces during the post-colonial period was the Sudanese Communist Party, the SCP,
Hell yeah.
one of the strongest communist movements in Africa at the time.
Let's go.
It attracted intellectuals, workers, and activists committed to anti-imperialism, secularism, and social justice. Successive governments, civilian and military, struggled to manage the country's deep divisions and uneven development. The first civil war from 1955 to 1972, and the second civil war from 1983 to 2005, largely pitted the North elites against the marginalized South, culminating in the eventual succession of South Sudan.
Okay. So it was like a 20-year civil war, and then South Sudan now.
What's that?
Because you said it was from the 80s to 2000 something?
Yeah, 1983 to 2005 was the second civil war.
Yeah, so it was like a 20-year civil war. And then 2005, is that when South Sudan was created?
2011.
11. Okay, gotcha.
Let's see. In 1971, the Communist Party attempted a coup led by Major Hashim al-Atta. I'm not sure if I said that right. They staged a 3-day coup to restore socialist policies.
You didn't say his whole name.
Yeah, Major Hashim al-Atta.
Okay.
3-day coup to restore socialist policies after then President Ghaffar Namari had begun purging communists and aligning with the U.S. The coup briefly ousted Namari, but he returned to power with the help of Libya's Muammar Gaddafi and Egypt's Anwar Sadat. Namari then executed SCP leader Abd al-Khalik Majub and other key Marxists, decimating the party and forcing it underground. The regime veered sharply toward Islamism and neoliberalism, setting the stage for the eventual implementation of the Sharia law in 1983. Fast forward to 1989, Omar al-Bashir came to power through a military coup backed by the National Islamic Front, ousting a democratically elected government. Bashir ruled Sudan with an iron fist for 30 years, overseeing the genocide in Darfur, suppressing opposition and entrenching military Islamist rule. After Bashir seized power in 1989, Sudan took a sharp turn toward this Islamist government. At the center of this shift was Hassan al-Turabi, an influential ideologue who envisioned Sudan as the heart of a global Islamist revolution. The ideological pivot had immediate consequences on the world stage. During the Gulf War in 1991, openly siding with the Iraq at the time when much of the world was, or Sudan openly sided with Iraq when much of the world was against Iraq. The move didn't just alienate Sudan from the U.S., it cemented its reputation as a rogue state in the eyes of the West. Then, throughout the 90s, Sudan became allegedly a haven for militant groups, including Osama bin Laden, who lived there from 1991 to 96. That association earned Sudan a spot on the U.S. list of state-sponsored terrorism by 1993. In 1997, the U.S. imposed sweeping sanctions, effectively cutting Sudan off from Western financial systems and devastating its already fragile economy. And just as tensions reached their peak, one event pushed things even further into a new violent phase of confrontation. Just 2 weeks after Al Qaeda bombed U.S. embassies in Kenya and Tanzania, President Bill Clinton launched Operation Infinite Reach, a retaliatory missile strike. One of the targets, the Al Shifa pharmaceutical plant in Khartoum. Khartoum's the capital.
That's the capital?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Infinite reach. You touch us, we can touch you anywhere.
That's right.
Real quick, where is Sudan geographically?
It's in the Sahel region. It's
That's the
towards
west.
No, well, the Sahel goes all the way
That's
across.
not the whole center. For
Yeah,
middle
it's like
band.
not quite north.
Is it under Libya?
Yeah, it's underneath.
Okay,
So
okay,
it's that
okay.
part underneath.
Gotcha.
Those countries are like underneath the northern countries.
Because Libya is by Egypt, right?
I think so.
Egypt's like the first top left one. I'm just trying to picture it. And then Sudan. Okay, so I
Yeah, it's
understand.
closer to
Okay.
the it's on the Red Sea. Like it's
Oh, okay.
so
Okay.
it's like the east side.
There we go. That's a good way to put it. It's
Yeah.
on the Red Sea.
So anyway, the U.S. claimed that this factory secretly produced nerve gas in collaboration with Al Qaeda, but the intelligence quickly fell apart. Investigations later revealed that Al Shifa was primarily making medicine, basic pharmaceuticals, vaccines, and anti-malarial drugs. There was no conclusive evidence linking it to chemical weapons.
You're right.
Yeah. So the immediate fallout was pretty devastating. One person was killed. The factory, which produced half of Sudan's medicines, was completely destroyed.
Oof.
And the WHO reported critical shortages in essential drugs, worsening a public health crisis that would linger for years. I think there was like estimates. I don't have it here, but I read it somewhere that there was like almost 30,000 people died
Damn.
as a result
Because of that?
of those shortages.
Right.
Even regional allies like Egypt and Saudi Arabia criticized the U.S. Inside Sudan, Bashir used the attack to rally nationalist sentiment, framing it as yet another example of American imperialism. So, of course, this dictator used this to consolidate power, which is another reason why sort of foreign interventions don't always work, and a lot of times they don't work. Is whenever you attack a country, these leaders or sanction a country, the ruling leaders can use that as to say, hey, look, they're against us, support me, and I'll get you out of this mess.
Yeah. I mean, it's very similar to like, I don't know, you roll in and start throwing a whole bunch of people in Guantanamo Bay and killing a whole bunch of people extrajudiciously. You're going to have a whole bunch of, like a whole generation of people against you. Like,
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah, I remember an interview where Chomsky was talking about like the sanctions in Iraq and how unpopular Saddam Hussein was in the 90s, and that the sanctions actually helped him consolidate power in the 90s.
Wow.
And it, obviously ended up killing like 500,000 children.
And we put the sanctions on him was that for the Kuwait thing or was it for Iran stuff?
No, I think that was as a result of the Gulf War.
That was just part of the Gulf War sanctions. Okay.
I think so. But this was under the Clinton administration that the sanctions really tightened on them. So,
right. Which was Gulf War. It was under Clinton.
Well, no, the first Gulf War was under Bush.
H.W. Bush.
Yeah, the first Bush.
There was a second Gulf War, though, right? Operation Desert Storm or some shit like that?
I'm not sure.
All right, keep going. I'm going to look that up.
But yeah. Where was I? So strategically, Sudan shifted eastward, strengthening ties with China, especially around oil development, and securing financial support for the Gulf states. These new partnerships helped the regime survive despite growing isolation from the West. But perhaps the most lasting consequence was the erosion of trust. The Al-Shifa bombing became a cautionary tale, a symbol of how flawed intelligence and misguided counterterrorism can do lasting harm both to innocent civilians and to long-term geopolitical relationships. For many in the global South, it fed a narrative of American hypocrisy and double standards. And I just thought, whenever I was reading about this, and I remember I had heard about the that pharmaceutical bombing before in the past, but I didn't realize it was called Al-Shifa, and that made me think of the Al-Shifa hospital that Israel bombed in Gaza.
Oh fuck.
Which was also under the pretenses of their Hamas is under the hospital, so we have to bomb it.
The hospital, we got to do it.
So it's just interesting. Interesting parallel there, where we use this false pretense of there being Al Qaeda producing weapons, nerve gas or whatever in this pharmaceutical plant to bomb it. Israel, of course, took a page right out of our book, doing the same thing in Gaza, bombing a hospital. So it's just, I thought that was interesting.
Typical empire shit.
Right.
Colonialists gonna colonize. Well, not really colonize, but just empire shit.
But yeah, they never could produce any evidence that there was Al Qaeda there or nerve gas. Never apologized.
The news cycle moves on. I mean, that's what the whole book, or not the whole book, but a lot of the examples in manufacturing consent were about as we were reading that.
Right.
It was like how these things would pop up, even because there were some legit critiques that would pop up in the news cycle, but they were never followed up on. They're just forgotten about. Just move on to the next thing.
Right.
And it kind of, then they, warmongers or warhawks can point to and say, look, there's stories out there, people can decide. But yeah, it's just, people just move on, forget about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's no follow-up.
And there's some suspicion that they also may have bombed this pharmaceutical plant because they didn't want them producing pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
They knew that there wasn't, nerve gas there, and they just bombed it.
It's a form of control over their population.
Yeah, control of the population.
Don't let them take care of themselves. Yeah.
But also, we don't like other countries producing pharmaceuticals. There's a history of the United States intervening in countries like India. India actually had a pretty large pharmaceutical industry, making generic drugs, and I can't remember the details or where I read it at, but
do you remember when that was? Because I heard the same thing about Puerto Rico, and I know the pharmaceutical companies left, and now
right.
It did prop up a lot of the economy on the island while they were there, but they're gone now. Mm-hmm. Do you remember when I'm trying to put that in time. Was that before or after India? Because they essentially did the same thing in India.
Yeah, I'm not really sure.
Okay.
I want to say it was probably 80s, 90s, but
okay, so that was probably before. Okay.
Yeah. But we, of course, this is why we use trade deals and what have you to really try to bully these countries out of producing their own pharmaceutical industries. So maybe that was a coincidence. Maybe it served more than one purpose.
U.S. privatization.
Yeah, but just something to think about.
Yeah.
Moving along here. We're gonna fast forward a little bit. So I wanted
15 minutes is up, by the way.
We're already at 15 minutes.
It's fucking weird. I just looked over and saw that.
Where we at?
It's right at one. Yeah, it's right at 1 hour right now. So that was 15.
I'm making great time.
Yeah.
Let's see. In early 2000s, the world briefly turned its attention to Darfur, where the Sudanese government and allied Arab militias known as the Janjaweed carried out a genocidal campaign against non-Arab populations. Entire villages were razed, civilians were systematically raped, murdered, and displaced. While the U.S. did label it a genocide, meaningful action was limited. Meanwhile, the same militias responsible for these atrocities would later be repackaged as the Rapid Support Forces, the RSF. And we're actually about to talk about them, but I want to go over a couple other things here. Another pivotal turning point came in 2011 when South Sudan gained independence after decades of civil war. This was not just a political dispute, it was a fight for cultural survival. We mentioned this earlier, but the Arab Muslim dominated government in the north had long imposed Sharia law, the Arabic language, and Arab identity on the southern populations, many of whom were Black, Christian, or followed traditional religions like animism. This effort at forced Islamization and Arabization alienated millions. Even as Southern oil enriched the North, the South remained impoverished. After years of bloodshed, the 2005 Comprehensive Peace Agreement allowed for a referendum where over 98% of South Sudanese voted for independence. That's pretty telling, 98%. But independence wasn't a cure-all. It created two fragile states, each with internal divisions, unresolved border issues, and heavy dependence on oil, and extractive militarized systems of rule didn't vanish. They just mutated. Now we're getting up to the current crisis, 2019 revolution. The 2019 uprising was led by grassroots movements, many with leftist ties. The Sudanese Professionals Association, teachers, doctors, lawyers organized protests under the slogan Freedom, Peace, and Justice. The Sudanese Communist Party supported the uprising but refused to join the transitional government, calling it a military Islamist deal, and they were right. The uneasy civilian-military arrangement didn't last. In 2021, the military launched another coup, reaffirming their grip on power. But the resistance didn't stop. Local neighborhood communities, many rooted in Marxist and socialist organizations, traditions, kept the struggle alive. After longtime dictator Omar al-Bashir was ousted in 2019, Sudan entered a fragile transitional period. I mentioned the RSF earlier. So the RSF was a group that Bashir created to sort of insulate himself from the army. So he kind of had created his own.
So it doesn't look like it's a military rule?
Well, no, he was worried about being couped.
Oh, about the military. Okay.
Right.
Insulate his power from a coup.
Right. So he kind of created his.
That's what coups come from, usually, is the military.
Right. Exactly. And there had been, a history. That's how he got into power. Was a
coup.
So, as I mentioned, the RSF was before known as the Janjaweed, which they are the ones who committed the
genocide,
the Darfur genocide. And of course, once they ousted Bashir, because there was a popular protest in 2019, the RSF and the SAF, the Sudanese Armed Forces, that's the sort of the more traditional branch of the military, sort of started to have a power struggle.
Okay.
Basically, they agreed to get rid of Bashir because of the popular uprising.
But the party that he created to insulate himself
went along with the uprising and said, you got to go kick rocks.
But who's in charge now?
Well, that's the problem.
Okay.
So you have the Rapid Support Forces, which is basically like a paramilitary group.
Gotcha.
That was created to protect Bashir largely, and also did a bunch of awful shit like the genocide and killed a bunch of.
But there's no
minorities.
Pronounced leader or successor within that group right now.
Well, the general of the RSF is the General Hamidi. He's the
Okay.
head of the RSF.
So he's probably the one
He's the what's
that's
that?
gonna want power, because it's
Well,
gonna be like one person that comes out of this, right?
well, I mean, that's what they're fighting about.
Well, if the RSF was to stay in power,
What's that?
because the RSF is essentially the ones that were in power, right?
No, I mean technically
Well, I guess
they were all in power. They were both in power, but they were both under Bashir.
right.
But once Bashir left power, then they were like, okay, it's like two factions in the military essentially.
Right. It's
Violent.
not. Yeah, I was thinking of it like a party and then the military, but it's really like, yeah, like you said, a paramilitary group,
Right.
and then the more traditional military.
Right.
Okay.
And I mean the RSF, I guess they took control of a lot of mines, gold mines. They were
Good move.
Yeah, so they were able to expand pretty quickly because they were able to finance themselves.
And what I know you mentioned Marxist influences, but that's from a different party, right? That's not the RSF.
No.
That was the Sudanese what was it? Communist Party.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they are also now trying to fight for power now that there's like a vacuum,
Yeah, I mean they're not significant.
or they're just not. Yeah, they're not. Okay.
Yeah. So I mean they want a civilian government. I mean they were part of the popular uprising in 2019.
Break down the dictatorship,
Yeah.
democracy in the workplace, even better type of democracy. Okay.
Yeah. So I mean they were just mixed in with the rest of the country who obviously were tired of Bashir being corrupt, just like most of these, post-colonial African leaders.
Do you think it's comparable to the Ba'ath Party with Saddam? Like after he was ousted, like the Ba'ath Party ran the government essentially, and the de-Baathification like broke everything. But like, is the RSF essentially his? I mean, I guess there's no way to compare it because it's not at the same level.
Nah, yeah. I mean, it's a bit different.
Okay. Well, what do you think is gonna happen, or what else you got on here?
Yeah. So anyway, Hamidi wants Hamidi's the head of the RSF. Hamidi wants once a Bashir enforcer was integrated into the RSF and wielded significant power. The tipping point came when Burhan is the leader of the SAF, the Sudanese armed
Traditional
forces.
military.
Right. The tipping point came when Burhan and Hamidi clashed over the future of the RSF, specifically whether it would be fully merged into a formal army and over the control of Sudan's government and resources. So after this uprising, Burhan basically said, hey, you guys got to come into regular government. You guys can't just be like this separate paramilitary.
Right. You got to be folded into the SAF essentially.
And they were like, and he said, we want you guys to do this over a period of like 2 years. And he was like, nah, maybe.
I expect it to be tomorrow.
Yeah. And I think he said he wanted it to be 10 years. But he probably just said that because he wanted to accrue more power.
Right.
Yeah,
Give him buy himself some time.
Exactly. So on April 15th, 2023, this power struggle erupted into open conflict. What began as a military dispute quickly spiraled into a brutal civil war, plunging Sudan into chaos and sparking the worst humanitarian crisis in decades.
Worse than the genocide? Damn.
Yeah, it's been pretty bad. I don't know if you could say it's worse than the genocide, but people have, called it a genocide in some aspects. I mean, again, it's the same group that did the genocide that's in power.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, makes sense.
Or has half of the country.
Right.
So this is just some of the stats from the humanitarian issues and crisis.
Mm-hmm.
The numbers are staggering. Over 14 million Sudanese have been displaced, more than 8 million internally, nearly 4 million fleeing across borders to neighboring countries. Tens of thousands have been killed, with countless more wounded and traumatized. About half the population, nearly 25 million people, are facing extreme famine. In places like the Zamzam camp in North Darfur. Famine has been officially declared. A cholera outbreak has claimed over 1,600 lives, with nearly 60,000 reported cases, while 80% of hospitals have become non-functional due to attacks and looting. The economic toll is astronomical. Estimated rebuilding costs top $1 trillion, with
Attacks
300
like America
billion
bombing your pharmaceutical. No, I'm just kidding.
with
Yeah.
300 billion in damage in Khartoum alone. And the toll on women and children has been horrific. Sexual violence has surged, particularly in RSF-controlled areas, and child malnutrition rates have skyrocketed. And I should say, like, all the reporting that I've seen says, they're both awful. The
Both
SAF and
sides. Yeah.
RSF, but yeah.
It's like
But
American politics. Both sides are off.
the RSF has been, I guess, particularly brutal and has done
Well, they've
more
already
of
committed
the
one genocide,
right.
and now they're
Most
using
most of
rape
the
as a tactic. Once you start using rape as a tactic,
yeah, most of the sexual violence, from what I gather, has been coming from like the RSF and stuff.
yeah.
So this war just isn't a Sudanese tragedy. It's a proxy conflict with immense geopolitical stakes. The UAE backs the RSF, providing arms, funding, and drones, using the RSF as a mercenary force, not only in Sudan, but also in Yemen and Libya. Also, I think, it doesn't say it here, but I believe that the RSF was selling much of its gold to the UAE as well.
Okay.
That
Like the gold mines you were talking about
that
that
they
they.
control of.
Yeah.
Egypt and Saudi Arabia support the SAF, aiming to secure their borders and regional influence. Russia has courted the SAF, eyeing a naval base at Port Sudan.
Because that's the Red Sea, you said?
Yes.
Okay.
With the Wagner Group previously training
Wagner
RSF.
Group.
Wagner?
I think that's how you're supposed to pronounce it in Russian. The W's are V's.
Okay.
I like to say, because they say like Wagner, like they say the V.
Wagner.
Yeah, they really say that shit.
The Wagner Group previously trained RSF fighters, hinting at murky ties. So a little bit of both sides there.
Right.
So it's interesting.
So that's the proxy war. Is UAE? Who was else on their side? I know Saudi, Egypt, and maybe Russia on the other side, but who was on UAE
Well,
side?
yeah, Russia kind of on both sides apparently.
Playing both sides. The Shah don't like Russia.
UAE was back in the RSF.
And are they by themselves on this? There's no one else?
Yeah, this here says that Saudi Arabia was more in support of the SAF, but I also saw something that said they had supported the RSF to some extent as
So
well.
the Saudis may be playing both sides.
But that's probably because, as it just said here, the RSF was sending troops to Yemen.
They were using them to fight the Houthis, I guess, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So of course Saudi Arabia would love that.
More proxy war shit, yeah.
All right.
Okay.
So I think they've kind of been on both sides of that as well. But if I had to guess, I think, Russia and Saudi Arabia are probably more comfortable with the traditional military.
The SAF.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
Gotcha.
The United States claims neutrality, but arms regional allies like the UAE, Egypt, and Saudi Arabia, deeply entangling itself in the conflict by proxy. Meanwhile, Turkey and Qatar maintain diplomatic and commercial ties, mainly aligned with the SAF factions.
Okay. Yeah.
And Israel quietly cultivates intelligence sharing and normalization deals with both sides, adding yet another layer of complexity. China,
Israel everywhere.
yeah. China, though not directly involved in the fighting, continues to invest in Sudan's infrastructure
There we go.
and peacekeeping, seeing a stable Sudan as a potential node in its Belt and Road Initiative.
What is this Belt and Road Initiative, man? It's like altruistic empire.
I don't know.
I'm hoping this is,
It's not altruistic. It's
I mean, I understand like you'd want to strengthen them because that helps if you have good relations with them later.
it's just about
It's just not exploiting them outright.
yeah. They just want to build trade with countries around the world.
But there's no Chinese companies that want to come in and set up pharmaceutical companies in Sudan and sell them shit. I'm just trying to see or highlight the contradictions or the differences between us and China. The way like China rolls into these countries now that we've fucking pulled out of a lot of them. They're like with this Belt and Road Initiative. Let me help you out, help you with your infrastructure. Whereas we rolled in and was like, yeah, we'll help you out, but we own this. We'll bomb your fucking pharmaceutical company.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like we're trying to privatize everything, exploit, try to get like every drop out of your shit.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I was actually going to mention that.
Perfect.
You kind of beat me to it.
Close it out, man. We've gone too long.
But no, you went too long. I've gone pretty good. Where am I at right now? What's my
Man, we're
time?
great, man. We're at 117.
Okay, so I'm a little over 30 minutes.
Yeah, you're fucking golden, baby.
But yeah, that's pretty much. I'm pretty much at the end. What else? I feel like there was something else I wanted to mention.
Darfur, South Sudan. Wait a minute. I think I have a couple questions real quick while you were saying all that shit. I did look this up because you mentioned the Bin Laden thing, him being there. And I don't know. Have you seen the new Netflix documentary, American Manhunt, Bin Laden?
No,
I haven't seen it either. But there's also one that HBO put out like 10 years ago, also called American Manhunt, or maybe just called Manhunt. I'm like, that's fucking crazy. They use the same one. But in that one, or same name, in that one, they talk about almost catching Bin Laden in a hospital. And I thought that's when he was in Sudan. But that was actually when he was in, I'm not sure. They think maybe Qatar or something.
right.
But we did almost catch him in Sudan. They looked that up a little bit too. And like or I guess Clinton's counterterrorism intelligence guy, fuck, I don't have his name here anymore, but he was like, yeah, we messed up. Like we should have got him while he was in Sudan. And that would have been for what? Like the attack on the USS Cole and shit. Like what had they even done at that point?
Well, prior to
Like Al Qaeda, yeah, like why was Bin Laden being targeted? Like what actions? I know they blew up some embassies. I remember that.
yeah, well, I just mentioned the embassies they
Right.
bombed in Kenya and Tanzania.
So I guess that's enough.
I mean, that's why they bombed the pharmaceutical plants
As a response to that.
as a response to that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we almost got him there, but somebody helped them out and he got away.
Yeah.
Also, when you said Libya was helping the U.S. backed leader against the commie leader, when that struggle was going on, why would they do that? Because I guess
Libya.
that was when we had still good ties with them, huh? With Gaddafi and stuff. Then we had decent ties with them at first until they tried to nationalize the pipeline.
I don't know if we had decent ties. I don't know if we ever had.
Kind of just didn't like mess with Gaddafi, let him do his own thing.
Yeah, I don't think he was really a major. He wasn't really on our radar like that.
But he was helping the guy that the U.S. backed against the commie guy. I keep saying commie. The Communist Party fucking representative. You would think Libya and Muammar Gaddafi would be like, fuck American Empire. I'm gonna help the other side.
My understanding is, well, one, he backed that who was it? Was it Naimiri is the guy we're talking about. Who was the before Bashir, he was
the one that was US backed?
Well, he wasn't US backed. I think he came into power in a coup as well. I forgot how he consolidated power. But this was after, Sudan had gained its independence.
Right.
There was hope that Naimiri was going to move in like a more socialist direction. And at first, the Socialist Party or the Communist Party actually supported Naimiri
Oh, okay.
to some extent.
So it wasn't like that. Okay.
Right. But at some point it became clear that he wasn't moving in this more socialist
Got a taste of that
direction.
global capitalism.
And then this is when they attempted the coup that I mentioned. So they tried to coup him.
Hmm.
Gaddafi backed Namiri
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
in the coup attempt
I see.
to put him back into power. He won. Gaddafi was a little bit skeptical of communists.
I really don't know much about his economic view, other than he wanted to create like an African dollar, wanted to unite like those top African countries, and like
Yeah, so initially, like, and I don't know a whole lot about Gaddafi either,
we'll
but
speculate.
he wanted like a sort of a pan-Arabist state,
Pan-Arab, yeah.
all right, and he saw not Bashir, Namiri
Namiri.
as someone who was aligned with that,
Gotcha.
as opposed to the
Gotcha.
communists.
I see. Yeah. Okay.
So that's part of the reason. Same thing with
That's interesting.
Nasser, who was the president of Egypt. You know, he came to power in the Free Officers Movement. But there was the sort of they were like socialists, but they were Arab socialists. So they had like they identified strongly with the state and Arab ideology, or Islam ideology.
Which is a lot of consolidated power and like ruled by authority type shit.
Yeah, that, but also they felt like the communists were atheists.
Okay. Okay.
Right.
Yes.
And
I
they
always forget about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also they had these were burgeoning anti-colonial independent states oftentimes, and they felt like Moscow was, the other major pole in the world at the time.
Yeah.
What's that?
Like the other option.
Well, no, they didn't want the Communist Party in Moscow to undermine the sovereignty of their own countries. That was their concern. They thought like the communists within their own countries would be subservient to Moscow's interests instead of the interests of their nation states that were newly independent.
But like even then, like you're choosing like my nation states what's in its best interest is to be part of this global capitalist Western hegemony thing, and just give ourselves more power in that system.
No, that's not what they were saying. They wanted a non-aligned policy. They weren't saying we wanted to be with the West. They were saying we don't want to be with the West or the Soviets. We want to, the third world was the third way. Like we want to chart our own non-aligned path.
I mean, I get that, but like, don't you have to pick a side philosophically?
No.
Like economically? I guess not. I guess you just, yeah.
I mean, they were saying that we don't want to be part of any block geopolitic, fights. We don't want to say we're with the Soviets or with the U.S.
I just don't know why we worry about communists undermining them, but not Namir being like a U.S. undermining.
Well, he wasn't at this point. And he turned to, in fact, Gaddafi got upset with.
Okay, so once that happened, okay.
So he backed him initially, and Namiri eventually became more friendly with the West.
And then Gaddafi didn't like that.
And then Gaddafi didn't.
Okay, well then, all right, yeah. That lines up.
Yeah.
At least he's a principled man.
Yeah. So basically, you got to remember, most of these countries at the time, they didn't want to be caught in between this Cold War.
Right. All these proxy wars we keep talking about.
What's that?
These proxy wars that we keep talking about. I mean, some of them are Cold War proxy wars, but the Cold War is the biggest proxy war, and they didn't want to be involved in that.
Yeah, they didn't want to, this is the same with, Patrice Lumumba in the Congo, Kwame Nkrumah in Ghana. The Darker Nations, the book that I've been reading talks a lot about that, the third world non-aligned movements.
Who wrote that book? I don't know.
Vijay Prashad.
Oh yeah, Vijay Prashad.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, that's pretty much it. But Gaddafi was in favor of some socialistic policies, just like many of the anti-colonial leaders were at the time,
Mhm.
Nasser as well in Egypt. However, they didn't like that. They didn't want to be part of the Soviet sphere of influence. They wanted their
Right,
own
like
independent
the
policies.
communist philosophy essentially was tied to the USSR at that point. Russia. I don't know. Is it tied to China? Because it seems like they're cool with China. The Belt Road
Yeah, I
Initiative.
just don't. I think China just wasn't as influential
At the time.
politically at the time. Yeah,
Right,
if I had to
right.
guess. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, no, I get it. So they're just because in my mind it's like a philosophical decision. Are you going to go more capitalist? Are you going to go more communist? But if it's framed as communist is Russia, capitalist is United States, we're not aligned. We're just not going to pick a side. I mean,
Yeah,
we
that's
take
more.
parts of both, but we'll figure it out
Yeah,
later.
they didn't think of it as like I gotta pick a side.
Right now,
As far as like an economic ideology, that's how they were.
that's what I mean. Yeah,
Right. That's not. I don't think that was their thinking. They were thinking about, again, these are new states
newly independent.
who want their sovereignty. That was their focus.
They're figuring out. They got a lot of shit to figure out. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Yeah. Hell yeah, man. That's the only questions I got.
But yeah, that's really pretty much it. I just want to stress here that we want to keep an eye on Sudan. Also, a lot of this I pulled from People's Dispatch. Which is
Shout out People's Dispatch.
I use them a lot, so check their work out. There's also a person on Twitter or Instagram. Her name, I forget what her real name is, but her tag is like Bson Blast, like BSONBLAST, Bson Blast or something like that. Anyway, I think she's Sudanese or of Sudanese descent.
Okay.
But I've been watching her clips for a year or two. Well, since the Civil War has really broke out. So
Right.
yeah, so probably a couple years.
Okay.
And she posts a lot on Twitter and Instagram. Like I haven't looked at her stuff too much lately. I looked at it a little bit before this episode.
Okay.
But she posts like every day. And she has a lot of like she gives updates, like daily updates. And so if you're interested in following it at all, definitely go to her page. She also has like a link tree with a bunch of places you can donate to.
Do that.
So definitely check that out. But yeah, it's pretty much we keep an eye on Sudan. It's gonna be one of these places that this is something else I wanted to mention is that multipolarity isn't necessarily a good thing, and I think we've kind of touched on this before. Like for some of these smaller countries like Sudan, it means that you're getting pulled in a lot of different directions. I think it's a good thing overall, but it can have some negative consequences, especially for smaller countries that have a lot of different people or countries who want to influence their politics because of their resources or their the geography where they're located at, like Sudan being on the Red Sea, which is very pivotal for trade routes. So this is just something we got to keep in mind that, as the world becomes multipolar, as it seems like it's headed that way, some of these smaller countries, may have a difficult time because of the different poles that are competing for influence and power. And also, I just want to highlight that it's the history is always important. These divides are always exacerbated by interventions by the West and other colonial powers. I think a lot of this stuff could be prevented or at least you know,
Mitigated.
mitigated. Yeah, if countries would invest, like China, you know,
Mm-hmm.
you mentioned China.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important to do more of what China's doing. You know, when you look at a country like Sudan, a lot of the tensions that have been exacerbated are because, you know, you got different parts of the country fighting over resources. You got ethnic divisions,
Right.
but these are all sort of, you know, these are vestiges of the colonial period.
Right.
Um,
Divide and conquer shit.
right, exactly. But one way to sort of mitigate these tensions is to invest in these countries, allow these countries to develop. And
Without strings attached.
yes, exactly. That's key. Without strings attached, and that will go a long way in, you know, sort of mitigating these conflicts. So just something to keep in mind.
For sure. Agree. 1,000%. Well, I was gonna say let's take a break, come back, and then I was gonna say let's just scroll through our Discord chat, talk about what they're talking about, but we're already at 1 hour and 30 minutes. I think we're good. That's pretty good. 1 hour and 30 minutes. It'll probably be around that because I gotta add the intro, outro, maybe clean it up a little bit. But yeah, any last things you want to say before we end this shit?
Nope, that's all I had.
All right, Sudan, keep an eye on it. RAF versus SAF, Horn of Africa type shit.
We're rooting for the people, though.
Always power to the people.
Always power to the people.
The power struggle, and again, these countries, they need room to breathe, man. Like, let them figure this shit out. RAF, yeah, they're terrible, but you know what? There's no reason for us to fucking step in. And if it is, or not a reason, if we do, it's not because of that. It's because of some other interest or way we can exploit them or vested interest. And is not ever, we don't step in to bring power to the people. That's a lie. So, power to the people of Sudan. And yeah. All right. Catch y'all later.
Peace.
Peace.
There's no way to be committed to nonviolence in the middle of the most violent society that history's ever created. I'm not committed to nonviolence in any way.
The Republican Party and the Democratic Party are beholden to the interests of monopoly capitalism in this country.
The capitalist European and North American powers have carved out and taken the timber, the flax, the hemp, the cocoa, the rum, the tin, the copper, the iron, the rubber, the bauxite, the slaves, and the cheap labor. They have taken out of these countries. These countries are not underdeveloped, they're overexploited.
The liberals are, at times, allies. At times, they're unreliable allies. So I don't want to just whitewash them. You've got to proceed quite cautiously with liberals.
The man or woman who knows the least about communism